Makanao, dunia yo hey yo hey. Yeah, sacred breath, the breath of life. That was what that was. This is all in the language of the people of that mountain. And it's a language that came all the way from Atlantis with those people. When the main part of Atlantis went down, and the mountain that stayed up carrying those indigenous people floated down and became the north coast of Colombia. For the Arhuacos, the name of their temples is Concurwa, and for the Kogi it's Niue. I'd like to say something about when I first went there, and that place is called the Heart of the World, and it's set up, you know, in the four chambers of the heart. When you go into the Niue, it's like that too. Inside of there, it's set up in the four chambers of the heart, so you have people in there in ceremony on each chamber of the heart, and everything we do in there gets transmitted to your hearts, everybody's hearts. What a beautiful thing, huh? Yeah. In some places where I was with these old people, like Mamo Gabriel, and he sits on the seat of all negativity, and his discipline in life is dissolving all the imbalanced thought forms that we human beings are pumping out all the time. There's a vortex in the earth, is the way they put it, that brings all of those thought forms up, and he dissolves them. And so, you know, just from that statement, you can see he never got much sleep. We kept him busy all the time down here. Mamo Gabriel, the angel of light. And when I was taken up to see him, he said, "Welcome home, Sequoia. We've been waiting for you to come here. Where have you been?" Yeah, really. It's all magical there. And he said, "You have been sent to us by the highest authorities of the universe." And that's another time when my jaw just kind of dropped open and I'm going, "I'm a little boy from a farm in Oklahoma. What are you talking about?" But he put it in that way. And he says, "You're here to help the people." You know, and the way he put it to me, it was like all people, not just the people on that mountain. But he was also aware that things were getting ready to change on that mountain. And they had put me in situations where they would ask me, what would happen if we accepted money on this mountain? What would happen if we developed a government here like you have? So, you know, I'd say, well, you'd be in the same situation we're in. I said, you got a beautiful democracy here now, and just when they offer you money, don't take it. Well, that's changed. They have taken it. And there's a lot of controversy on that mountain now. There's same kind of things going on here. Some people have a lot of the money, some have none. The people all would have all their individual gardens. They would trade vegetables. Now they're selling their vegetables. If people don't have money, you know, they're having a hard time eating some of them right now. To get back to Mamo Gabriel, you know, he said, yeah, you're to help the people here and otherwise, and that there's going to be a whole lot of people that don't want you to do what we know you're getting ready to do. He said, but keep doing it. We're going to be helping you through this. He said, there's going to be people doing black magic against you and trying to pull you down. And I'd felt some of that along the way. I got hit a couple of times with pains in my solar plexus that knocked me right on the ground. But I've come to a much calmer place even than I was then, since then, and none of that stuff affects me anymore. It just goes right on through. And a lot of people set up defenses. You don't want to do that, you know. And what you really don't want to do is turn that stuff around to send back. What you want to do is be an example of peace and of love and consideration and concern for those ones doing that, to help them. And they'll transform too if you do that. So, yeah, it's been an interesting time on that mountain. You know, being involved and seeing processes I never could have imagined under any circumstances. Now, the first time I went down there was in January of 1999, and I was having dreams about people dressed in white. And I'm usually pretty good at interpreting dreams for others, but I couldn't see what this was. And I was in a jungle setting, smoking the pipe on a creek with some people dressed in white. And a call comes one day from Mercedes Borreo. She's a Mayan elder and a priestess, and I'd known her for a while. She called me in Canada from Guatemala and said, I just got a call from Colombia, and there's some native people that want you to come down for some kind of gathering that's happening, and they want you to bring the pipe. And I said, well, okay, where am I going? And she said, all I know is you're flying into Barranquilla, that's where they ask, and that's all I know. And then I invited her to come with me because my Spanish is pretty limited. And we flew down together, and not having any idea what this was about, not having any direction of where we were to go when we got there. And we get off the plane, and an indigenous man walks up to us, and he just dressed in a pair of slacks and a regular short sleeve shirt. And he takes us by the hand, takes us right through customs to the other side of the airport, puts us on another airplane. We end up flying to Valledupar, that's over on the eastern side of the mountain. And a taxi is waiting for us there, picks us up, takes us to a hotel, like the only one in Valledupar with air conditioning. And so we still have no idea what's going on. And I had an eagle wing fan with me then, and I had a sage bowl and some sage. So they gave us rooms, and while I'm upstairs in the room unpacking, somebody from the hotel came up and says, they want you downstairs right now. And I go, well, where downstairs? Well, I'll take you down. He took us down. They opened these double doors, and I look in there, and there's a scene like I've never seen before, but these were the people I saw in the dream. All dressed in white, they were barefoot. The guy who headed up the Kogi group, he was there, the old man, and several of the ones who were leaders in the other three communities. They were all in there. They had some of their young kids in there, and there's television cameras everywhere and big spotlights on. And I'm going, what is going on here? And so one of the young men came and took me by the hand, and Mercedes took us right up to the front of the room and moved people away from the head table. And I'm standing there looking out at these cameras and all these people dressed in white out there, just not having the slightest idea of what's going on. And then one of them said something, and then the translation was Sequoia, say a prayer. So I had the fan anyway and some sage, and I did that. I said the prayer, and I had the fan up, not this one, it was an eagle, a different kind of fan. And I had it up like this, and the next day in the newspaper there was a picture of me holding that fan with a light coming out of it right out toward the camera, out of this fan. I've still got copies of that newspaper. But anyway, I'm up in the front there, and all of a sudden they say, Sequoia, speak. And I'm going, speak? What am I going to speak about? And they sent words through me about who they were, why they'd come down off the mountain. They came down off the mountain there to reveal themselves to the world. And many of them had never been off that mountain before, never. And so they saw this as a very important thing, that they could reveal themselves to the world. And then the teachings that they have that are very relevant to all the rest of us living in harmony and peace upon this earth, that, that those would all come forth. So I just started talking, and these words are coming out like I'd known them forever, and I don't even remember the words now. I don't remember them. And so anyway, that ceremony went on for a while, and then the next day I still know nothing. And they put me in a four-wheel drive vehicle, take me up the mountain to Nabucimaki. And we go in there. In there, there's a man from the Amazon, Zuma, who's one of the ones asked to come up. I found out they had invited 9 people up there. And what they were wanting us to do was translate their law of origin into Spanish so it could get presented to the government of Colombia so they would have an understanding of what these people were doing up there. Now, I'm going like, I don't feel equipped to be doing this kind of thing. That's where I was with it. But as it turned out, I was and didn't know it. So for 9 days, we worked on this. Okay? But before we did anything, we got to kind of meet with each other in this village of Nabucimaki. All the buildings are white. When I first went in there, I saw white paths going out from the main gate, going around the village, coming out through the back gate, and lined up with that seat of all negativity where Mamo Gabriel was. I didn't know that at the time. But what came to me very clearly was that they lived inside of a picture of the DNA. And even the longhouse there that they had where they did their community meetings was like the furnace in the DNA. You know, to get back to one of these people, the guy that came up from the Amazon, Zuma, as soon as he saw me there, and this was in the afternoon, he walks up to me and he says, "Okay, where's that tobacco you brought me?" And he had a woman from the Amazon with him who was like 20 years old, who could speak perfect Amazonian, perfect English, and perfect Spanish. And just before I had left, I was in Ganawage, the Mohawk reservation, and they had harvested their tobacco called the original tobacco that's grown in Prayer. It takes 3 weeks to get it planted. And one of the people from the longhouse gave me this big bundle of this tobacco wrapped up in a tanned deer hide. And I mean, he knew, you know, "Where's that tobacco you brought me?" So I brought it out. He was squatting down on the ground, and so I squatted down and I passed this tobacco over to him. And then around his neck he was wearing a gourd like they wear in the Amazon with a little stick in the top. That's their representation of the feminine and the masculine. And in there he had this powerful tobacco from the Amazon cooked down into a paste. And before he would ever talk in a circle, he would take that little stick out, put some of that tobacco paste in his mouth, sit there until it started being activated, then he would start talking. The purpose of tobacco everywhere, and for people who don't even know what the purpose is to suppress the intellect. Get it out of the way, then it's easier to go into meditation. Well, you know, we've taken it in many different ways here in the Western world. But that's like the original purpose of it. What he does then, he takes this gourd off of his neck, it's on a cord around his neck, passes it over to me, and I put it around my neck. Well, he's into the original tobacco from the Mohawks now, and he's taking handfuls of it and stuffing it in, and this is powerful tobacco too. And he's chewing it up, and he says something, and he says, "That's enough tobacco to kill a rattlesnake." And while he's doing that, I pulled some of this paste out on the end of the stick, put in my mouth, and the woman says, just after I did that, he says, "Don't do too much." Well, I was pretty much incapacitated there for 3 days, just from a little bit of that. And it was difficult for me to get around and to do anything. After that, the next thing I know, it's getting dark, and they've told us, you have to stay in this village, you can't go out and go anywhere, don't make any sound, don't make any noise, just be, and we'll get back with you in the morning. So anyway, everybody else went inside these little white huts there and slept, but I slept outside because I was looking at the sky and these stars, and I was seeing streaks of one star moving to another star like they were making love to each other, you know, and back and forth, and flashes of light in the sky. So I stayed outside. And while I'm out there, all kinds of information is coming to me about the ecological, so-called ecological damage that's being done by human beings. They're desecrating the bottom of the mountain, you know, where the mother's milk flows from the top of the mountain, from her breast, to feed the people below, and they're making it impossible to use that milk, you know, that water, in the most productive way. And it's affecting the top of the mountain where her milk is starting to not flow anymore. And I'm laying there looking up into the sky, and all of a sudden this information comes to me like that's the Mamos doing out-of-body travel and traveling interdimensionally. And these big flashes would come. So, and then a voice comes at the end of all this. Is going on all night. I mean, I'm not even getting close to covering what all happened there. But so I was told when I woke up the next morning, to take this information to the Mamos. Vita Coco, the star nations, fully populated, every one of those stars. Vita Coco.